millions sat in front of their television, watching and sinking further into depression for days and nights. Millions got on the telephone, introducing to some and reinforcing to others the horrors of the hurricane's aftermath. Sometimes I think half of those million people call me. I heard remarks such as, "I've been watching this television all day long." I understand that we have a need to know. I understand that we hurt. I understand that we are human, but it is written that faith without works is dead.
Yes, sir.
At some point, we need to answer the call to action. So what could we have done? I can't answer that for everyone. We have different talents and abilities. We have unique experiences and perspectives. One of the things most of us could have done, step one, was turn off the television long enough to stop reinforcing our grief. Take a break from that which is breaking you. Continuing to watch something as being what I call a volunteer victim. That is why God put an off button on the remote. For people my age and above, you might remember there's also an off button on the television. During Katrina, I had no evacuation plan. I had no relocation plan. I had neither one because I didn't know where I was or where I was going. I began at the intersection of shock and disbelief. I quickly traveled to the crossroads of anxiety and anticipation. Along my route, I took detours to grief and sorrow. Eventually, I ended up encountering the roadblocks of anger and blame, which is centrally located in the valley of despair. We don't need to be in the valley of despair. Thankfully, I finally leaned not unto my own understanding and realized that if God had spared me from being a hurricane victim, it made no sense for me to become a volunteer victim of another kind. My home was not underwater. I was not in overcrowded facilities, lacking good rest facilities. I was not hungry. That should be obvious to you today. I was not missing close friends and relatives. All I was missing was the faith to let go and let God and do what I could with what I had. One of the things I did in response to Katrina was to establish a web page with links to relief organizations. Those organizations in some cases help locate missing friends and relatives, with links to organizations that allowed survivors to contact their friends and relatives and let them know they were okay. Within the inspirational messages that I sent on a daily basis, I promoted that web page. Again, my efforts were uncoordinated. They were done without training and relief work. It was done without a budget. It was done without the blessing or approval or direction or dictates or expectation of thanks from any mortal being. Sometimes you just do what you do. Everyone else may disagree with it, but if you believe in it, it is driven by God, do it anyway.
Yes, sir.
The devil and his board of directors, including apathy, shoulda, coulda, and woulda, would have had me believe that the very little I was doing meant nothing. But to those feeble efforts, I added prayers to God that somehow what I was doing would help someone in some way. Several days into the crisis, I received an email from a young lady thanking me for all that I was doing for the hurricane victims. And she had been one of them. For years, this young lady had been on our email list. I never met her. I did not know she lived in New Orleans. Suddenly, the seeds that I planted became the harvest I had hoped for in the midst of the tragedy I never imagined. Suddenly, operating primarily on faith, I became a small part of the solution of one of the world's greatest disasters. I accomplished this in spite of the limits of who I am, because there are no limits to who God is. Suddenly, I became a blessing to someone in need. And now I will bless you with those 3 infamous words that have become audience favorites as I close. It'll take a while. This is a breakfast program.